Hello and welcome to a What Car First Drive in the stunning Atacama Desert, and we're driving the new Audi Q8. So what is the Audi Q8? Well, thanks to Audi's pretty conventional model names, that's pretty easy to explain. So all the Audi Q models are their SUV lineup. It starts with the Q2, which is a small SUV, then a little bit bigger, Q3, Q5, Q7, and now Q8, being the highest number, sits at the top of the range above the Audi Q7. So the Q8 is slightly smaller than the Q7. With the Q7, you can specify having 7 seats, but with the Q8, the maximum is 5 seats. So while the Q7 is all about practicality and just being a brilliant all-round luxury SUV, with the Q8, it's more about style, it's more about luxury. The Q8 is slightly shorter than the Q7, but you still have the same amount of room inside. It's only got a smaller boot, and the roofline slopes back at the back, kind of like that coupe SUV look like you find with the BMW X6 and the Mercedes GLE Coupe. Anyway, what do you need to know about the Audi Q8? Well, it's available in 2 specs in the UK, nice and simple. Entry-level S-Line, and then above that you'll have Vorsprung. And S-Line is packed to the brim with kit. You get massive 21-inch wheels as standard, and you get Audi's latest dual-screen MMI touchscreen infotainment system. You also get virtual cockpit as standard, and you get a host of safety kit as well. So autonomous emergency braking, you get lane keep assist, and you'll also get adaptive cruise control and steer assist as well. But those are likely to be available in options rather than as standard. As for the engines, well, when it launches in the UK in the summer this year, it will only be available with one engine, and that's a 3-litre, 282 brake horsepower V6 diesel engine. Later in the lineup, you'll get a V6 petrol, which is slightly more powerful, and you'll also get a slightly less powerful V6 diesel. So the same engine, but just tuned down a little bit. So this diesel V6, we've already driven it in the Audi A6 recently, and it's one of the new Audi engines that gets mild hybrid technology with it as well. But when we say mild, we mean mild. It basically means the engine can turn off when you're coasting on the motorway, but it doesn't happen for long. In terms of performance, well, although the Q8's a big, heavy car like the Q7, with the 3-litre V6, it's perfectly adequate for power. It gets up to motorway speeds really easily, and around town, it's really smooth, the delivery is nice and progressive. One of the most brilliant things about this engine though is just how quiet it is. So around town and at a cruise, you can barely hear the engine's on at all. The 8-speed automatic gearbox that you get as standard with the Q8 can feel slightly hesitant at lower speeds, and it can feel a bit slow to engage, but it doesn't detract from the comfortable nature of the car, and really it's a decent gearbox by the class standards. And actually, refinement generally in the Q8 is brilliant. There's a bit of suspension thump, and we're on some quite rough roads here, but generally it's very, very quiet with a bit of wind noise whipped up around the wing mirrors. Now, slightly interesting point about the wing mirrors, they're actually exactly the same as you'll find on the Lamborghini Urus, the high-performance SUV. And that's because these two cars were actually designed in very close proximity to each other. Going back to the engine though, the only thing is, it's not exactly exhilarating. You know, this is quite a big, expensive SUV, and you feel like actually the 282 horsepower only kind of gently taps into what this car could do. But there are rumours that an RS Q8 or an SQ8 could be coming further down the line, so we'll keep an eye out for that. So the only suspension option that you'll get in the UK is the Sport Adaptive Air Suspension, and every car will get that as standard. With the S-Line you get 21-inch wheels, with the Vorsprung you get massive 22-inch wheels. Now those are big wheels to stick on a car. Putting the word sport in a suspension setup doesn't necessarily fill you with confidence that it's going to be particularly comfortable, but we're on fairly challenging roads. The ride is a bit fidgety over broken surfaces, but it's not uncomfortable. Certainly this is a comfortable car, it's quiet inside, and it's got a nice relaxing nature about it. So if we take a look at the interior of the Q8, you'll actually see that it's quite familiar to Audi's other latest models. So it's a pretty similar design to the new A8, the new A7 and the A6. That means it's a very sleek design, and the build quality is as good as anything you'll find in the class. It also means that it gets Audi's latest dual-screen touchscreen infotainment system, the MMI system, the latest generation of that. So that means you have this screen up here where you can control sat-nav and media and your phone, and then underneath it you have things that can control the air conditioning and other things like that. we don't really see it as a big step forwards from what Audi had previously. So the previous MMI system had a rotary dial that made it just a little bit easier to control what you were doing, especially on the move. Whereas this is a bit complicated, a bit convoluted. Now Audi have gone for this acoustic haptic touchscreen. So that basically means if you select something on the touchscreen on the bottom, when you press it, you get a kind of sensation back from it. It's a bit odd. Really, we just prefer physical buttons. So that's not so great. That's kind of a down point because you can't change it. This is what you get in the Q8. But it is good that you get it as standard, so you don't have to pay extra money to get it. And another brilliant thing about the Q8 is that Audi's virtual cockpit, which we've long sung the praises of, comes as standard. So the Audi Q8 is slightly shorter than the Q7. So what that means is they've shaved a bit off the back of the car. So that does mean that the boot is smaller in the Q8 than it is in the Q7. But when we're talking about the Q7, we're talking about one of the most practical cars you can get. So that has a massive boot, and really the amount that it's lost for the Q8 doesn't mean that it's a completely unusable space. There's still loads of room for luggage, certainly even for a family of 4. And it's bigger than what you get in an X6, so it's still a decent size even if it is smaller than the Q7. So the Q8 loses a bit of boot space compared to the Q7, but the distance between the front wheels and the back wheels are exactly the same in the Q8 and in the Q7. So that means when you're in the Q8, in the back, you get the same extremely generous amount of legroom that you get in the Q7. So even tall adults will be able to stretch out in the back and relax on long journeys. The only downside of the Q8 compared to the Q7 is the headroom. And that's because of the sloping roofline that the Q8 gets. So it's slightly lower and it swoops down in the back. So you are slightly more hemmed in, but still, I'm just under 6 foot and there's still a decent amount of room. You do notice the side of the roof cutting in slightly more, but it's not enough to make you uncomfortable, and you'd have to be, well, a Harlem Globetrotter to be uncomfortable in the back here. So to summarise then, is the Audi Q8 a worthy addition to Audi's illustrious and packed lineup? Well, on this evidence, we'd say yes. It's better to drive, it's more spacious, and it's got nicer interiors than the BMW X6 and the GLE Coupe. And although it is compromised compared to an Audi Q7, if you look at it in its own right, there are lots of things to be positive about. Now, in terms of pricing, there is a big step up from an Audi Q7. Full pricing is yet to be announced, but it'll work out roughly at about £12,000 or thereabouts. And that's a lot of money more. Objectively, the Audi Q7 is easier to recommend because it has everything that's good about the Q8, but it has more space. But if you're sold on these looks, you want something that stands out a little bit more, then we can completely understand why you would go for the Audi Q8.
For the latest car news, reviews and videos, don't forget to subscribe to the What Car YouTube channel.